Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, now we're talking something a little bit more technical. AeroArrows. We're talking arrow weave now. And spot weave. Okay. Go, I mean, just to not blow too far, you're more than welcome to write on the catalog. That's yours to keep. I want you guys to take a look at page 22 and 23. Because I think this is where all the magic is. Can you turn the air conditioner a bit lower?
I don't know how to do that.
Just use a remote. No, I'll do it.
Sorry.
Can you just tell them I'm busy? Okay. This is where the arrow as we know it changes. Let's go back to the history of arrows. Very long time ago, arrow basically all bamboo shafts. And then we go to cedar, aluminum arrow, graphite, and of course, the latest and the greatest is weave. Now the reason that people use bamboo, because bamboo has the best hollow structure, weight to weight ratio, and flex. That's the reason bamboo was used quite a bit. Even today's absolute best bamboo arrow are the old Southern split bamboo 6 hexagon back arrows. In other words, you make individual pieces of this and you actually make an arrow out of this. There's the same thing with fishing rods. If you want the ultimate arrow in art, you can't exceed this. This is the best. But unfortunately, you're going to pay something like $200–300 for each. From an artist, if he is willing to make for you. You actually have to file them to this point and glue them together. And that's your arrow. That's where the bamboo arrow is. Why is it so good? Why is this so good? Because now you're taking the silent vessel of the bamboo and then you put it together to form this. That's the reason if you are a fisherman and you fish AMTM 1 and 2 or 3 for this big a trout, there's no better rod than a bamboo rod. It depends of graphite because the action is so more presentable, slower. Same thing with arrow. It's a very, very consistent. Like the Japanese jandao, the one you sit down, curve, long bow, shoot, same thing. It is that perfect. But you're talking about 1 week's time into making one of those. Now let's talk about cedar. Everybody got cedar, they turn it, they grind it, they spine it, they shoot it. That's a pretty simple deal, no big deal. I mean, it's our progression. It's simpler, it's cheaper, it's better, comparatively to this, because this got so much time. It is not better. It's simpler, it's easier to obtain.
And then it warps.
Exactly, moisture. But this one prevented that, didn't it? Because it's actually using natural material for engineering. The next level, aluminium. Whoa! It changed the whole ballgame. But what's the problem with aluminium? Metal fatigue, extrusion, welding. You know you know what the welding process arrow is? You have a flat piece, you roll it together, you weld it, and you grind it. So if you look at the arrow down in the old days, you see that line? That's your spine. Because that's the imperfection. You're gonna bend exactly opposite of that. Not that, the opposite of that. Because that becomes the strongest, thickest point. Because you can't grind the inside. Then we move to carbon. Well, carbon fiber. Just like everything we know who build boats, build golf courses, golf clubs and everything. They are all linear. So how do you overcome a linear? Just like when Beeman built theirs, the moment you have anything, the whole thing spurs out when you crack it. Because all the carbon are linear. So to be fair on you, if you want a linear spine carbon arrow, the Beeman, you see, indeed, it beats it. And currently, deer crossing is pretty much the same approach. But the bad thing is that when that thing failed, it's catastrophic. It's like, you know, you really want to drive a fast car, take the airbag, take the ABS brakes on, take the crumble zone, your car will go a whole lot faster. It will stop too, but you may not survive in an accident. It's like everything else. I mean, just like the people who do the Tesla faster than the Nissan GT, rip the seats, everything off the car. Sure, you have no weight, no safety, no comfort. Of course it's faster, but do you want to live with it? Answer is, for me, is no. Then we move to the next spot, the weave stuff. Well, a few years ago, there's another company made weave. I believe it's Element. You notice the weave is a herringbone weave? What's the difference between a cross weave and a herringbone weave? The difference is 1:2 ratio. In other words, 2 fiber to 1 fiber. In other words, just like this, those are herringbones. Or if you look at the picture on 23, the one on the left-hand side is a herringbone weave. It's a 2:1 ratio. Why do you have that? What's the benefit of that? When the carbon fiber is very thick and non-giving, you can't do this because you got too much, so you end up doing this. That's the difference. Because when you do this, there's too much gap between. See that? See how much gap you got? But if I do this, the gap is even. But that creates a problem. That means you cannot put too many layers on it. Every layer becomes dominant because it's so thick, there's so much resin in it. So what did we do in Firenock when we decided to make our first arrow? We look at every single history of arrows and say, let's change it. Of course, a lot of people don't understand. Fishing rod, golf club are not the same as arrows. Do you know that arrow shaft is the only carbon tube that in the world that need to bend that's not a tapered? That's the reason arrow shaft is so different. And people say, oh, I'm going to use a golf club oscillation process to test an arrow shaft or test a fishing rod. That's correct. Because the fishing rod with the taper one, you'll eventually oscillate the same. But when you deal with golf club, what happened? One end and the other end is not the same diameter, isn't it? Fishing rod, obviously it's not. The tip of the rod is not thinner. So at the same time, knowing that knows how these behave. But what happens when you use a arrow? I mean, say, yeah, there's arrow, there's taper, isn't it? That's like your nitro stinger from Aerodynamics, your another arrow company in Michigan. They're all tapered. What's wrong with taper shaft is perfect. Yes, I agree, taper shaft is perfect. The only problem is that we, at this moment as human, cannot make taper shaft the same. The only company that actually did it is Syncron. Syncron fishing rod. They are the only one able to make a taper shaft 100% identical on every one of them. But you're going to pay $150 for each of them. So what's the problem with taper shaft? Because when you roll something tapered, okay, the carbon fiber is being stretched this way. In other words, not a single arrow is the same. So you got a dozen arrows, they all behave differently. It is okay for traditional bow, they go to compound bow. No matter how you try, you cannot get consistent out of a taper shaft. That's where the problem is. Now, why is a parallel shaft so much better? Because a parallel shaft will let you actually control the front and back of the shaft. Now let's go into construction of the arrow shaft now. How do we know it? Currently, what do we consider a good arrow shaft? A good arrow shaft has to combat 3 forces. The first is loop strength. That means when you put a knot into the shaft and you bend it, you pull it. In other words, how good is this shaft in holding its shape? The second is called torsion. It's called the torque strength. That means when this part is straight, when I twist this, how much the arrow behave. And the third is called torsion strength. The moment you bend it, how much twisting it do to the shaft. And there's more. The moment you bend the shaft, this middle section, it turns into oval. Yes, exactly. What? A round shaft turn oval? Now this is where all the physics of tubular come in. This section, actually look at it, is going to behave more like this. And this part of the fiber I push into this way, and this part of fiber I push out to this way. Now to make it all complicated to the bejesus, is that when you have a traditional like a gold tip, a carbon express and so on, the moment you do this, you can feel it. This 2 part will do this to you. When you do this, see, you can feel it. This part is twisting on this side. When you do this part is twisting on this side. That's called torsion. That's the reason when a lot of time when you shoot a shaft, you must flex the shaft. The front of the shaft turn this way, and then turn this way, and then turn this way. Because when you flex this without this moving, this will twist because this is fixed. The moment the arrow leaves the shaft, now both ends are free. The vein take over, now twist to one side. You're dealing with what you call torsion. I mean, torsion control, a lot of companies are doing quite well. Because see, when you look at my, look at these pictures, I'll show you. This is what the traditional arrow, like the old beeman or the deer crossing, the fibers are linear. Okay? This is what a gold tip and most other companies, the fiber are directional. They try to use multi-layer carbon to offset the torsion. But no matter how you offset, the torsion exists. It's only a matter of latitude of that it exists. Some of them talk a little bit, some of them talk a lot. The one you see talk the most are the target shafts, because the layers are very thin, and this becomes very dominant. You can see it. Now the good thing about 166, because all these are overlapping on a much thicker, so that you see least amount of torsion in the 166. But just like in every fishing rod or every single construction, a 300 spine is a 300 spine is a 300 spine. So what's the difference between a 300 spine 300 gold tip 22 compared to a 300 spine 166? The material is the same. You get the same amount of material. You just roll it thicker and thicker in the 166. You make it thinner in the 300. It's just like if I want to make a 1 ounce fishing rod, make a tube of this big to this big, what's the difference? The thickness of the wall is still a 1 ounce fishing rod. Then yes, when you change the thickness and so on, now let's talk about the thickness and the reaction of tubings. The fact is that the larger the tubing, the higher the performance, the faster the reaction time of the arrow shaft. The wall is thinner, they react faster. Just like fishing rod, you want the thinnest wall to get the best performance. You want the thickest walls for the durability. The truth is somewhere in the middle. You want more performance, you got thinner and thicker. You want less performance durability, you got thicker and thinner wall. But thicker wall and thinner diameter. So what's the good thing about a thicker wall? What's the benefit of having a slow reaction time like the 166? It gives you a false sense of higher spine. Because the arrow reacts slower. So a 300 spine will a lot of time initial apex behave like a 250 spine. As you increase your spine rating, you shoot easier. Because it's more forgiving. But you're also not conserving more energy. People say penetration. Penetration have because if you don't build an arrow good, 166 have its benefit. Because it flex less. So you go into something faster. Because if you don't flex so much, you lose less energy in the tail end. And you seems to make it even further by increasing the front end weight. But what are you really doing? You are really you're making the arrow less and less performance. Am I making sense? So, what is the best arrow? From my research, I believe the best arrow for hunting are the 204 and the 246 size. I'm skewed towards 204. I haven't made any yet. So you can't say that because I made 244. I haven't made any, nor I have planned to. But the best arrow at this moment of time is 204. The easiest to build the best arrow are the 246. If you want a customer just throw something at them and you know it's decent, are indeed the 166. As long as you spine the arrow, put the outside in right, put the veins on it right, that arrow will perform in most people's hand. Even the bow is not well tuned. That's the reason people love it, because it can be not well tuned and shoot right. But then you reach a certain performance, you plateau. You can't go any further. But with the 204 and the 246 and up, there's so much more you can do. Because now you can throw arrow concept 1.0. You can throw arrow concept 2.0 in it. With the 166, what can you do? You're done when you build it.
So there's no
concept for 166. It's too small. There's nothing can go inside. The 204 is the smallest you can put tube inside. And the 204 also one benefit is that it's thick enough to be durable. You also allow you to arrow concept 8. It also lets you double tubing, and that's the reason I built 9 different inserts just for 204. Actually, you go be 15 now. And of course, we can see the combination of the two combination of 1 and 2, and which is what Carbon Express did with their arrows. You can see that it's a combination of both offset and layers. So that's reason Carbon Express arrow. I mean, this is actually straight from the patent application. Now, what do we do on the next weave, next level? That's what we call herringbone weave, and that's called a cross weave. So how can we possibly improve on this process? First of all, if we significantly reduce the thickness of the carbon fiber by about 500%, we make it this thin, so all of a sudden the weave get flat. Second, a normal arrow has 5 layers. If I only use 1/5 the thickness, what will happen to the result? I now have 25 layers. With the same material, same thickness, isn't it? Now, if I have that many layers, what can I do with it? I start doing this. I do a cross weave on the base layer. That's your loop strength. Then I do a linear carbon fiber. That's your spine strength. So how do you control torsion? By laying the carbon fiber at 45 degree, 135 degree, like this, instead of this. You prevent the torsion. To prevent the torsion from happening at 45 degree, I lay a 90 and 100 degree on top of that. So how do you twist this? You can't. How do you break this and spur this? You can't. As a matter of fact, if you grab one of my arrows, which my son did, I told him put a potential glass on him and break this. When you break it, it ends up with 5 to 7 pieces of clean cut tubes. That's what we get. So you won't come with like this. You clean cut tube. In other words, I designed it just like tempered glass. The worst part of a glass when you break, it come out with spurs and long sparks. If it come out and crumbles, cubes, it won't hurt you. That's what I did. Yes, what the downside of this is heavier. It's more material. It's more time. But it will outlast anyone. Now, this is retail for $159.95 a dozen. This is arrow weave. So
Doesn't matter what shaft, what size.
see, the big deal is that I actually have 3 patents on manufacturing process. I withdraw all of them. The bottom line is that they are production process. A normal manufacturer, when they make 1,000 arrow, 400 of them will be something like 1,000, 300 will be 3,000, 250 will be 6,000, and you got 50 or whatever. With this my patented my proprietary manufacturing process, I have a 99 to 99.5%, 1,500. Every one of them. So when you put it on, they are all the same. So I have no rejection. Second, there's no torsion, there's no relief, which I can't say much about it because this is where my technology different. So all my dealer asked me, say, Dodge, this is wonderful shop, but we can't sell it. Not to our general customer. We got maybe 5 customers that will buy this. Because when you build this thing with a titanium kit, you're looking at $300 a dozen arrows. We can't deal with it. Can you give us something that is price comparable? So I talked to Marvin Carlston, the ex-president of Gold Tip, who invented Gold Tip. I learned everything from him about how to make a decent arrow, and I did one step further. That's what I did. I grabbed the first 4 layers of Gold Tip and wrapped a 4K carbon on top. So this will have torch just like Gold Tip, but it got my 4K carbon on the top. So when it's splintered, it prevents it from splintering. And that go for $89.95 a dozen.
That's retail or that's
Retail.
Or $125 if you did the 2.0.
Correct.
You get an additional $35.
But on insert, or if you do just basic insert, it's $20, but $14. So you're looking at $105 with the insert and shelf.
How does that compare as far as torque strength, torsion strength?
They are 100% identical gold tip at 5%. The Pro Hunter 1000 add 5% to it. So technically I'm selling a gold tip Pro Hunter with a 4K weave on top for $90 at 1000. A dozen.
So that's called your sport weave?
Yes.
And the other one is
The
your
only
Arrow weave.
person that can get sport weave are certified and trained dealers. And no more. When you buy sport weave, you must buy insert with it. Any insert. You can buy the basic stainless steel, basic brass, concept system with stainless steel, aluminum, brass, cheap. Doesn't matter. If you buy the thing, you must buy insert with it.
That vertical arrows only, or is that bolts too?
For crossbow bolts too. If you buy crossbow bolt, this is even better. I'll announce it loud and clear. For anybody buy my sport weave crossbow bolt, because it's shorter, it's cheaper, I work out with a relationship with my supplier. If you buy 12 dozen, I'll give you the 13th for free. Indefinitely.
So if we do the sport weave crossbow bolt with the 2.0, you're looking at close to the same accuracy as an arrow bolt.
If you use the concept, yes, actually it's better.
Concept 2.0.
Concept goal is beyond arrow bolt, unless I put arrow bolt 2.0.
I see.
The moment you go arrow bolt 3, which I'm making now, it's a different ballgame.
Slow down. We barely got two.
The arrow bolt 3 is based on this.
I see. So we'd be looking at $125 a dozen. We could even
You can call it
mark that
150
up to 150 a dozen. That
because
would-
without even blinking an eye, because my arrow bolts are $300 a dozen, bar none. But see, my arrow bolt including the fuel point and the vane when you buy it. The arrow bolt 3, because of cost, it doesn't include fuel point anymore. Remember, the fuel points are $40 a dozen, right on the get-go. So the arrow bolt 3 is going to be actually $40 more per dozen compared to arrow bolt 2. But the sport weave, which is what I leave my dealers to play. You notice all the sport weaves is not on my website. Certified trained dealer, this is yours to play.
This
This
is
is,
sell them for 200. We sell them for 200.
you can do anything you want. You cannot just go down $89.95 bare shaft, $105 with basic insert. That's your MSRP or MAP. If you build your shaft good, I expect you to, with the Arrow 3, with the dagger, you should be very comfortably selling $400 a dozen arrow with the broadhead unit. And you outlast anything and everything. That's the time when you shoot 120 yards at a deer and see it drop within 5 feet from where you shot it. Those are pretty bold games, you know. I'm talking in front of the camera, that's going to be on YouTube. So, it better be real. It better be real. Because otherwise I'm in trouble. This is exciting stuff, isn't it? Because I don't want to do this. This is my entire life of doing archery. Anything I made are at least 50% better than the next guy. This is way more than 50.
Have you done testing with like the gold tip the 10-point Evo X?
Don't know what that is.
That's their new bolt that they're putting out with those NXT crossbows.
Well,
Center punch.
never heard of them.
Yeah.
I don't know enough. Because if it's 10 point, you pattern pretty much based on it'll be Easton's arrows. Okay.
These are Easton.
Okay.
They're
Switch to
big.
victory.
Oh. Should I say more? Okay, do you like gold tips?
I don't know any better than gold tip.
Okay. Victory is a copy of gold tip. Should I say more? They haven't got anything new yet. The only thing got is voodoo, and if that's it. I'm not downplaying victory. After victory, copy everything gold tip. What a new shop they come up. Rip is the kinetics. What's a TK of kinetic with a junk herringbone weave on it, which is like the element. The only thing they got is 2 end uneven. Because they don't know how to put the mandrel. I'm not helping anybody on this one. They couldn't figure out themselves. Now you understand why when you look at the element. Now you look at the element arrow. You notice one end is 207,000, the other end is 203,000. Because when they pull the mandrel out with the weave, just like Chinese finger puzzle, when you pull a Chinese finger puzzle, what happened? It gets fat on one side, isn't it? what is a quote unquote element? A Chinese finger puzzle based arrow. So when you pull something on one side, this side gets fatter. That's the reason 207 one side and 202 and a 204 on the other side. That's the reason you flip an element trying to put the 984 out. If you understand the fundamentals of arrow building, all the problem you see can be answered. It is there. There's no denying it. Would you like me to continue? So what do you think? Now you got a good concept what arrow do and what the torsion, the individual weave process, and how the sport weave is actually is my first ever, because see, I can't expect everybody to sell a Ferrari. So maybe it's time for me to let you sell Chrysler, Jeep, and also Fiats. Yes, I do have Ferraris if you want it.
But perform
Better than
like
anything else.
Ferrari,
Hey,
you know, I mean,
look at the new Jeep Cherokee. It's better than anything out there. I bought it. I mean, for 70 grand for my diesel, I bought it. It is better than any car I ever owned. I owned Mercedes-Benz before. I owned all the high-end cars before. That car is one of the best I ever drove. So, you know, when you have good company who build low-end stuff, just like Mercedes-Benz merged with Chrysler. The Chrysler 300 is the E-Class, cheap. How wrong can you go? You're paying $50,000 cheaper on a Mercedes E-Class. What's not to like? It's like right now with my Sport Youth. I'm just giving you a $90 1000 stringless with 5% more durability than a Gold Tip Pro Hunter. What are you complaining about?
We'll take that shaft to the bank.
Yes, sir.